Hey everybody, this is Rod Morgenstein, and you are watching CMS TV.
It is Chris Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin. And today on the show, we get just a monster player. This guy plays, there's drummers, then there's this guy. It's that simple. He's one of the masters of the instrument. He's you certainly remember him from Winger. You certainly remember him from Dixie Dregs. But he's now joined the Voices of Extreme, a band that some of you are probably aware of, but maybe not everybody. And maybe this guy jumping in and joining is going to make you available or aware of them. He is Rod Morgenstein. The new single is out there for the Voices of Extreme, Stoned Babies, and we're going to talk all about it. So, Rod, welcome to the show, my friend.
So great to be here, Chris. Good to see you again.
Yeah,
after
absolutely.
Nearly 2 decades.
I know, it's been a while, man. But it's great to see you moving forward fairly quickly. I mean, look, before we even get into Voices of Extreme, and I don't want to go too far into this, but it really did kind of shake a lot of people up when the end of Winger was announced. And, I'm sure you're getting asked that in every interview, and you can tell the story or not. My question to you is, did you know about it far enough in advance to start making plans, going forward?
Well, let me start by saying last year turned out to be a very rough year emotionally for me because I didn't realize how much my life and my vision of who I am is tied up in my band.
Sure.
And I think a lot of musicians understand that, but a lot don't really until it hits them in the face. So we've been talking about the end of the band for years. Like hindsight is 2020 when the band formed and Kip and Reb and Paul, they were in their 20s. I was in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
For a singer to sing in the stratosphere, it was no problem. Well, when nearly 40 years later, all you're doing is detuning your guitars and basses a half step, which is not very much. Singing in those registers becomes an issue for every singer. I couldn't even name 3, I think, who in their 60s can still do it. Mickey
Sure.
Thomas from Starship is the main one.
Glenn Hughes.
Glenn Hughes. There you go. But we're not going to get to 5, I don't
No.
think. But so we knew it was coming. And the last gig that we did, and at the concert, instead of saying, this is the last show, you'll never see Winger again, we said, never say never.
Mm-hmm.
Circumstances change. And sure enough, we have 4 shows on the books.
Okay.
This year, a festival in Brazil, a festival
Sure.
in Cancun. But on August 31st, we played the Rainbow Bar and Grill, the infamous birthplace of American heavy metal.
Right.
And I don't know how many years ago, just in the last few years, they started twice a year setting up a stage and lights in the back parking lot of the Rainbow, and next door is the Roxy. That's the nightclub that broke the Dixie Dregs in California,
Right.
way back in the 70s. And so that's where we played our last concert. Where, we thought, this is wonderful. And there were a total of 7 or 8 bands that played, Bullet Boys.
Sure.
And who else?
Stephen Piercy might have been on that, I think, maybe.
No,
No?
I don't think he was, but it was such a fun day, like 10 hours of music. But yeah, when I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that last year was an extremely rough year for me, it was like, holy cow, this past September was the 50-year anniversary for me of having gotten out of college at the University of Miami in Florida, where I met what became the Dixie Dregs. And so, wow, being a professional musician, 50 years, I've done a lot of introspective, work and trying to come to terms with everything. But I knew Don Chafin, the singer from Voices of Extreme, for several years. We met right before COVID when a guitarist by the name of Joey Cangemi, he goes by the name Joey Gem. He and his wife tragically lost their 4-year-old boy who was playing in their front yard, and someone who was texting on their phone hopped the curb, didn't even know they ran over this little innocent child and like killed him instantly. So after about a year of these poor parents, struggling to cope, this guitarist, Joey Gem, he discovered songwriting as his emotional way out. And so he contacted me and bassist Billy Sheehan to see if we would do like nearly an album's worth of material with him. And he is going to call the project Road Crew. His son's name is Rocco Cangemi, RC, Road Crew. Right. And so we recorded, it might have been around 2019. We played one concert on Long Island, right, where 3 of us are from. Billy had to come up from Nashville, where he lives. But we recorded at Don Chafin's recording studio, and I couldn't get over, what an amazing singer he is. And we've stayed in touch through the years, and he contacted me a year or so ago to tell me about Voices of Extreme, which is a band of his that's been around for some time. They did some shows with Tesla, and he wanted to know if I'd, like to be a part of it. And I love the guy. He's one of the sweetest human beings I've ever met, and he's got this spectacular voice. And I didn't realize he's also an amazing guitarist, because he didn't play guitar in the Road Crew project that we did a few years ago. It was Joe Cangemi playing guitar. So so I've already recorded most of the music. I have to do drum tracks for 3 more songs in February, and then shoot another video, which will be the 3rd video shot for the album. The Stone Babies, as you mentioned, is the first video that came out. And I'm really excited. It's nice. And, they're local. Like with Winger and the Dixie Dregs, everybody lives all over the country. So to have a band rehearsal, it takes 5 flights and hotels and et cetera, et cetera. But this group, everyone is located within 30 minutes of each other.
Oh, that's great. So then that, I'm going to make an assumption. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. That means that as you move forward with Voices of Extreme, it's always going to be a more organic feeling, almost jam-worthy band than, say, Winger right now or Dixie Dregs, where everybody has to fly in. Or I'm assuming a lot of it is throwing MP3s back and forth, and here's a guitar part, let me throw some drums on it. I imagine this becomes much more organic and much more creative for a guy like you that's already a creative person. Yes?
Sure. And just the fact that logistically it's so easy to, make a phone call, hey, are you available tomorrow?
Right.
To kind of come out to the studio to jam or do some recording. So that part of it, will make it very fluid and organic, as you say.
Absolutely. Well, Rod, let's talk about the first single. Let's talk about Stone Baby, since that's the first taste everybody's getting of it. I'm aware of Voices of Extreme. I'd be lying to you if I said, I play it all the time. But, I obviously have been aware of it for 10, 15 years or whatever since it's been there. Stone Babies to me sounds very different. It's, I mean, Don still sounds like Don, but it definitely has a different vibe to it. How much of that would you say is you coming in versus just creatively the band is in a different place than it was the last time we heard from them, which was like 18 or 19?
Hey, you. Why are you watching this with commercials? Go commercial free and unlock exclusive content. Become a VIP today on Locals, Substack, or Rumble Premium. Stop waiting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overstate what I think I bring to any project.
Sure.
But I know that Don has been a fan of my bands, beginning with the Dixie Dregs. It was not really just Winger. He was a
Hmm.
Dixie Dregs fan many years, and he thought that maybe having someone from my background could put a little bit different spin on the music that he and the bass player Paul Ranieri,
Hmm.
the music that they're writing. Now, um, I think that Paul's bass playing brings something special to this music because Paul plays a fretless bass, you
Okay.
know, a la Jaco Pastorius.
Yeah, right.
And it's a whole different concept than a fretted instrument, you know. Um, and what's nice is that it's not just Paul, who's like a fusion, comes from a fusion jazz prog background. It's not only he who wants to put his
Hmm.
interesting bass stamp on things, but I'm certainly a fan of it, and Don is open to anything and everything.
Sure.
So it's funny that you even answered the question. Like the way I got in Winger, which was a chance meeting between me and Kip and Reb when they were doing demos. Um, they already had a list of the 20, 30 some odd New York City based drummers who they were going to call when they got a record deal. And they were going to hire a local drummer to do the record and to tour with them. And when I just happened to walk into a room in a management office, Kip didn't know who I was, but Reb, he was so excited, freaking out, kind of going, Kip, do you know who this is? And Kip said, "Hey, I'm Kip. Like, who are you?" And he had never heard of the Dixie Dregs or
Right.
Steve Morse or anything in that world. Although Kip is a very serious, classically trained musician.
Hmm.
He's got this whole other life in the classical music world. And so it was Kip, to his credit, who said, "Hey, look, we've been rejected from every record label in New York, time after time, and we're not going to stop until we get a record deal. Um, Reb is so excited here. Let's get together and jam." And
Right.
so I guess he wanted to feel me out. And when we jammed, before I walked in the room, I talked to myself and said, "Rod, don't scare these guys away, especially Kip. You have to hit the drums hard, play simple, don't do the weird stuff that fusion drummers are known for."
Sure.
So I walked in, Kip walks over to me and he starts pumping eighth notes on the bass, like jump, jump, like can't get enough kind of
Hmm.
bass, jump,
Sure.
jump, 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 jump. And so I played what most rock drummers would play, which is just,
Hmm.
with a sloshy eighth note ride
Sure.
pattern. And that's all I did for like 30 seconds. And then he stopped and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you're playing eighth notes on the bass, and it's not a rhythmic part. It's just this constant thing. And I'm playing what my ears are telling me is appropriate for what you're playing." He said, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah. Great. I get it. I see you hit the drums hard. Reb told me you can do weird stuff. Like, can you lose me?" I went, "You're like, excuse me? You're asking me to think fusion, right?"
Right.
I said, "Okay." And then I just started doing the over the bar, odd note grouping, polyrhythm kinds of drumming that is found, day and night in the fusion world, in the
Right.
jazz rock fusion world. And I couldn't lose him. But he
Nice.
had this big, that Kiplinger smile, and that's how I ultimately first was hired to be the drummer on the album. And then, we were hanging out even after I cut the drum tracks. I would go to the studio all the time, and now we're becoming really good friends. And then I don't even know. Yeah, this way before we went on the road. So we just had a little discussion, like, "Hey, you want to make this a band?" And it's like, "Sure."
All right.
So we became a band.
Right.
And there it was. So I always point to those two measures after Reb's guitar solo in She's Only 17, where I cut the drum track and then the producer came on the mic and said, "Hey, Rod, can you do something that you'd never hear on a rock record after Reb's guitar solo?" So I said, "Yeah, give me a minute. Okay, I have this idea. You're probably going to hate it." And so I turned the beat around. It's called groove displacement.
Okay.
So instead of going pa 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 pa, I went pa 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 pa.
Right.
And so when you're not prepared for something like that as a listener, it totally throws you off. You lose your equilibrium. Up becomes down, down becomes up. And when the album came out, it was so satisfying for me to watch the video, and here comes this part that's never really been done in a rock format, you know.
Sure.
And you know, we went on tour in beginning of October 1988, and every night fans, mostly musician fans, are coming over to me saying, "What time signature is that in? Why did I like trip? You know, when it happened, what the hell is going on?" And so I try to explain what groove displacement is. It's just taking a beat and shifting it over, either an eighth note or a 16th note or whatever. And I would rattle off some of my contemporaries. I'd say, you know, you've heard Simon Phillips, Steve Smith, Dave Weckl, Vinnie Colaiuta, blah, blah, blah. And they'd say, who? The only like jazz or jazz fusion drummer that these rock fans knew was Neil Peart.
Sure.
And Neil wasn't really like a jazz drummer. He was a rock drummer who always had this incredible love of jazz music, right? And you know, years later he hooked up with this, you know, jazz legend behind the scenes player Freddie Gruber and took lessons. And then it was Neil who came up with the idea to do the Burning for Buddy record, right? Where he brought in, you know, a dozen or so drummers to each play a song with the Buddy Rich Big Band. I was the first person they called because Neil told Kathy Rich, Buddy's daughter, and her husband, Steve Arnold, at the time, that he knew me better than anybody else because the Steve Morse Band had toured with Rush for 3 months on their Power Windows tour. So I was very flattered that they called me, but terrified, though.
Sure.
At, you know, projecting, wait, are you telling me I'm going to be like in the power station in New York City facing the Buddy Rich Big Band, like this 16-piece group with video cameras on, and whoever wants to come to just be part of the hang, you know, whatever drummers are in New York City. It was terrifying.
See, I have a hard time thinking that you would be terrified by anybody on drums. I mean, I really do. You are regarded as one of the tippy top guys, man.
I still get nervous before every show.
Okay.
And you know, I brought this up with the guys in Winger before we went on stage. We were in, I think, Australia last year. We went from Japan to Australia. And, you know, I can always be found in the dressing room 2 hours before the show, you know, got to do this. And like the other guys aren't like that. You know, they'll like be like, you know, eating some food and chatting it up. Eventually they'll pick up their instrument. But I said, don't you guys get nervous? Don't you have to? And they look at me like I'm from another planet. They're going, nervous about what? You know what I mean? Like we've played in our lifetimes about 3,000 concerts, and rarely, if ever, is there ever like a catastrophe.
Sure.
So why do you have like a knot in your stomach and, you know, you're like worried? I said, it's just my nature. Until we get out there and get through the first 1 or 2 or 3 songs, you know, I'm questioning my existence to this day.
And more than likely, that's what keeps you from ever getting stale, is because you don't rest on your laurels ever. No matter how many guys like me tell you how good you are, you're still thinking, I can't blow this. I gotta hit it right. I gotta do this fill or this. You know, you're constantly on. 50 years in and you're still like me in my garage, where you're like, oh, let me get it, please.
I am. I mean, part of it is because I never learned the technique of holding and playing sticks where you build a certain kind of muscle memory
Okay.
to where you wake up one day and you no longer need to warm up.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish there was enough time, but I had an experience. Do you know the name Danny Gottlieb? So
I know it, but I don't know who he
okay,
is.
so we met in college at the University of Miami, which is known for its music program, among other things. And all of the Dixie Dregs were students there. We didn't know it. What became the Pat Metheny group, if you've heard of Pat
Yeah, of
Metheny.
course.
And Danny was the original drummer in the Pat Metheny group. Jaco Pastorius was this local kooky guy hanging out. Bruce Hornsby and the Range. They were all students. Nice. It was insane, like in hindsight. And so Danny Gottlieb studied with Joe Morello, the great jazz drummer from, among other things, the Dave Brubeck Quintet. And Joe taught Danny this muscle memory technique where Danny can pick up the sticks, having not held the sticks in a week, and can play as fast as anybody at a whisper, loud, and you just see the flab on the arms, just like total lack of tension, zero tension, right? Just relax. And so 35 years ago at a drum festival in Holland, in Amsterdam, Danny and I were sitting in his hotel room on maybe it was a day off, And I said, Danny, can you show me the technique? He said, sure, Rod, just do one stroke. And I went like this, And he went, oh my God. I went, what? What did I do? He said, no, Rod, you're great. But to make the really long story short, he said, why are you starting here to hit the surface? Because you're first having to pull the stick back.
Okay.
You're making two motions to make one sound. I will go, well, what should I do? He said, start here and you whip the stick down, but don't hold it tightly so that physics can do its job, where when an object like a drumstick hits a resilient surface like a drum head or a rubber drum pad, if you whip it down, the stick is already back a split second later. But what you're doing is you're holding it and like this. And so you have all this tension in your body. And, if you really want to kind of learn the technique, it's going to need many, many hours of time where you just sit at a pad. And he was explaining it to me in detail. And he's living proof of it's insane. Like he could just sit down, pick up a stick after a week, and go ding 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 ding, and I'm like boom boom ba do 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 do. And so that's why you can find me in the dressing room 2 hours before every show.
Right on.
Loosening up.
No doubt. Well, I guess we should ask a question or two about Voices of Extreme.
Yeah, of course.
We might want to cover some of that. Let me ask you this. I mean, you've obviously been in other bands, as we've been talking about. Walking into this and coming into the creative aspect of it, is it different? Is it the same? Is what easily workable with what they were already doing? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, it is. When you've been around for many, many years and playing with musicians of all different ilk and ability, you can't help but pick up all kinds of handy, devices. And so, yeah, like as soon as you hear someone strumming chords or playing a riff or something on keyboards, immediately ideas start forming in your head in terms of what you think might be appropriate. And, the thing for musicians to realize is there's no right or wrong in the creative arts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like someone could take a paintbrush and go blur, and someone is going to think it's the most brilliant, work of art that they've ever seen. Someone else is going to think it's trash. Everyone has an opinion. Unfortunately, that's the reality too. And so like when you read a review that's been written by one person and they're dissing your music, you know, so be it.
Right.
But that's just how the world is. We all listen to music and we immediately are taken in by it or find it, man, it's not my cup of tea. So, so when Don and Paul present a song to me, ideas immediately start coming. Um, but, I've never, I've always made it a practice to be open minded and not think that I know more than anybody else. And especially if I'm not the person who wrote a, a song or the song that we're working on, who am I to say this is how I'm going to play? And I don't really care what your opinion is. I'm always open to the other musicians' ideas. And
Sure.
I'm thinking back to the story in the Dixie Dregs when we were learning a song called Assembly Line,
Okay.
right? And so, as was typical, the 5 band members would come together at our rehearsal house, and Steve would go, "Okay, Andy, here's a bass line." Okay, so all right, let's play those 4 measures over. Okay, Rod, just do whatever. Steve would. My nickname in the Dregs is Sticks.
Okay.
Sticks, you know what to do because like drums is its own animal. You know, a guitarist can tell a bass player, "Here's the bass line that I'd like you to play." But with a drum, they go, just play the drums, just do the thing,
Right.
go dot dot
Sure.
dot dot. So I started playing something, and then Andy West at some point said, "Hey, Sticks, um, this bass line, this lick, it doesn't it sound like an assembly line to you? Do 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 do. Like just imagine you're in a machine shop and just
Right.
can you think instead of how you're playing the drums, can you think more of like creating an assembly line groove, something that's just going to repeat over and over?" And then that spurred ideas to
Sure.
where it's one of my proudest, drum groove creations because it's not one of what I call, the tried and true kick patterns of every rock song nearly, pa,
Right.
right? That's
Sure.
been around since the 50s and it's not going away. And other kinds of beats like that. But this was like
Right.
yeah, it evolved to that over the
Right.
course of the day or two
Sure.
that we were learning that song. So it's the same thing with any uh, new situation that you find yourself in. Um, Always try to find out, what these new people who you're doing music with, what's in their minds, how
Sure.
they're hearing things, uh, and really, it does one well to always keep an open mind and not think like, you guys don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know. I'm the drummer. Let me take care of the drumming. It's ridiculous.
Right. Well, but let me ask you this. Obviously, you've worked, for anybody that listens to music at all, I'll start there. The bassist and the drummer are the engine, more or less. And then the singer and the guitar player, like the gas and the, the gas pedal, I guess. But you have to connect with a bassist. Going to start working with Paul, who plays fretless bass, I imagine that's a totally different dynamic to connect with, not necessarily to play with,
Yeah.
but to find that connection on the back end. How difficult was that for you, or was it rather immediate?
Totally immediate. It is. It's not so much the fact that he plays a fretless bass, which is a completely different concept of a fretted bass. Uh, it has more to do with the musicality of the person
Okay.
and what level they are at. So if someone has only been playing a short while, they're going to have uh, certain limitations
Sure.
that is going to affect the feel. It comes down to the feel now. Um, I have found myself in the occasional situation where, like when I first moved to New York in 1986, I was an unemployed musician,
Okay.
right? I mean, really, to be blunt about it, like the Dixie Dregs ran its course, and then I continued with the Steve Morse Band for
Mhm.
a couple of albums, and we had just done the three-week legs with Rush on the Power Windows tour, and Steve Morse was asked to join the group Kansas.
Right.
I said, Steve, you got to do it. You know, like I'll figure out my life. Go experience that. And so my wife Michelle and I moved from Atlanta, Georgia, where we had been living for like a decade. Moved back to Long Island, New York, where we grew up.
Right.
But before moving out to Long Island, we moved right into New York City, having never really lived in an apartment in that kind of situation.
Sure.
It's like you're in a concrete jungle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just pounded the pavement, like really at first, silently panicking, like I have to find the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, since I was established, and a lot of people knew my name, especially musicians that were fans of the Dixie Dregs, um, I was able to get my foot in the door to a handful of auditions.
Okay.
Right. So George Michael was auditioning drummers, Joe Lynn Turner, right?
Right. Sure.
Patti Smythe and Scandal, Billy Idol. There might have been another one. So I auditioned for all of those artists, and I failed
Come on.
every audition, right?
Okay.
In fact, I love to tell this story. My audition with Joe Lynn Turner was set up by the Steve Morse Band manager, who was a small-time manager until he, discovered and managed Cinderella,
Okay.
right? So his name is Larry Mazer. He was a
Yeah,
friend
I
of,
know
he was Larry's a friend of mine. And so when I moved to New York, he called me. He said, Rod, Joe Lynn Turner's looking for a drummer. I told him all about you. Go to New Jersey tomorrow and like get the gig, man. I went, Larry, thank you so much. All right. So I go to New Jersey, did whatever. The next day, I get a call from Larry Mazer. Rod, what happened? I go, Larry, what do you mean what happened? He goes, Joe Lynn Turner told me you're the worst drummer he's ever heard in his life.
Come on.
Right? And so my heart sunk. I was a little, like anxious to begin with because I didn't have a gig. I'm looking for the
Sure.
next thing. I had this great career for the first 10 years out of college, 11 years.
Right.
I said, oh my God. He said, I'm the worst drummer he's ever heard. Well, a year, like let's say 2 years later, the first Winger album came out,
Right.
goes platinum and is just shy of 2 million sales. And I ran into Joe Lynn Turner at a party, and he came over to me smiling and he said, touche, Rod.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Get more metal in your inbox. The Classic Metal Show is on Substack. Listen or watch for free or subscribe for VIP exclusive content. Find us at cmspn.substack.com.
Let me ask you one quick one off of that, and then we'll get wrapping it up. George Michael, I can't see how you don't get that gig. That doesn't look. I'm a failed drummer. I admit it. I tried. I sucked. I quit. As people do.
Yeah.
I can play most of the George. It's slow 4/4 mid-tempo music for the most part. I can't see how you couldn't do that.
Okay, so here's what I learned just transitioning from the fusion world to the rock world. Simple, basic kind of playing of a musical instrument to do it correctly is deceptively simple.
Okay.
Every note is out there naked to the listener, right? And your peers. And if you're playing, you gotta have faith. Okay, so that's like a little busier than just.
Right. Okay.
But if you try to do that and you have an attitude like, oh my God, this is so stupid. It's so basic. This really sucks. And that was the attitude I had
Right.
when I first came to New York because I play in the Dixie Dregs with these amazing musicians.
Sure.
I didn't get it. And I thought all you got to do just play the notes. But no, you can't just play the notes. You have to want to play the notes and be really excited about playing the first drum groove you learned when you were 11 years old. Otherwise, it's going to come across that you have no respect for it, right? So that was a very big lesson for me, and I learned that just before I did my audition for Kip, Winger, and Red Beach, right? So, and thankfully I did. But the other thing that I wanted to say was when I did the audition for George Michael, he wasn't there.
Okay.
His band was there, and I forget what the bass player's name was, but you know, these are all top shelf studio musicians.
Sure.
And I could not find where this bass player's pulse was.
Okay.
Okay. So when there's a pulse that a musician plays to, some musicians play exactly on the pulse. Some push it a little bit. If you push it too much, it means you're rushing. But like Stevie Wonder, when he plays drums, he's like hitting slightly before the pulse. But most people are in agreement that the way you get that incredible feel that makes you scream and go crazy is when your feel is just behind the beat, right? So you have this fat, deep pocket. So no matter what I did, I couldn't feel where this bass player's feel was. And it was to my detriment, and you know, not
right. He already had a gig.
He had the gig, and he was. I think he might have even been like the band leader.
Okay.
You know, and I had the same thing happen when I did a jam one night up in Woodstock, New York. This is also right after I moved up to New York in '86, so it was '86 or '87. Tony Levin, who lives up in Woodstock, well, he's a monster.
Oh yeah,
right. I couldn't lock in with him, you know? So I don't know if like, this is the one time I met him and jammed with him. I don't know if in his mind to this day, if someone said, yeah, Rod Morgenstein, he'd go, yeah, he just doesn't have a feel. So that's the reality though. So just because say someone is on a certain level of ability, it doesn't mean, or if you have two of them, it doesn't mean that they're going to see eye to eye in terms of how they feel the music.
Right on. Well, man, you're definitely feeling the music here with Voices of Extreme.
I'm excited about it. Very excited about it.
Full-time thing? Project? What is it exactly? Is this full-time where you're going to tour and all that stuff? Or do you not know yet? Or
I mean, of course, certainly the goal is to tour for it. Everybody's dream is for the project that they're involved with to become a full-time occupation. So that's, you know, like that's the dream, and maybe it will happen. But you know, Don at the moment, you know, doesn't spend 24/7 just with Voices of Extreme. He's got this amazing Bon Jovi tribute band called Don Jovi, and they fill theaters.
Wow.
That's how successful it is. And, you know, in his heart of hearts, he wants to do original music, his music. And so, you know, we shall see. Hopefully, yeah.
Very good. Well, I hope so, man. I would love to see this, and I'd love to see you perform in something other than Winger. Not that I've not enjoyed you in Winger, but, you know, certainly I'd like to see some of this other stuff. I know that you guys are not, at least I think you're not completely done with the record yet. Is there a target for when we're going to get the record, or is it still in process?
I mean, in a perfect world, in the middle of this year.
Okay.
It'll come out, and it's called Faith in Action.
Excellent.
That's the name of the record.
And Brave Words Records is pushing that as well, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice to have kind of built-in publicity right at the record company level, right?
It sure is. I mean, because you need every star to line up.
Sure.
For things to happen in the music business.
Absolutely. Well, Rod, last thing, man. We always tell everybody here on this show, if you're going to stream it, stream it. You know, that's today's world. But if there's something to buy it. Is there a place that we can send people to buy a Voices of Extreme shirt, hat, keychain, tchotchke, whatever it would be?
You know what? That's a great question. I need to get the answer to that question. But, you know, the first thing to try is to Google Voices of Extreme rock band, you know?
Sure.
And then maybe that will send you somewhere.
Sure, and you can probably always check Brave Words Records. Then I'm sure if there's something available, I'm sure they probably have it too. But
yeah.
Good enough. Well, this thing is going to be exciting. First single, Stone Babies, is out there now. It is Voices of Extreme. And Rod, this has been fun. Thanks for joining me here on Chris Akin Presents.
I had a blast, Chris.
All right.
Your daily metal fix is on Rumble. Watch the Classic Metal Show episodes free or go commercial free with a premium subscription. Find your Classic Metal Show now at rumble.com/c/CMS, rumble.com/c/CMS.